Okay. Okay, so I am Beth Ann Chamberlain. I am a development coach with US Paralympics Nordic Skiing. Thank you guys for being here. And I am going to do just a quick intro. We're going to talk about sit ski maneuvering tonight. And you guys don't need to listen to me all night. You're welcome. Uh, but I'm very excited to have both Josh and Aaron, two athletes that are very experienced, two Paralympians in Paranordic skiing, and have a lot of knowledge to share. So thank you both for being here. Aaron, you want to chime in and say hello and where you're chiming in from, and maybe when you started skiing? Oh, you're muted.
Thanks. I'm from Seattle. I'm currently in Seattle, Washington. My name's Erin Martin. I started skiing in March of 2019, sit skiing.
Awesome. And can you also share what class of the sit skiing you fall into?
Yeah, so I'm a LW10.
Cool.
I
And
know.
we'll talk more about that a little bit. We won't dive into the weeds, but we'll bring that up because that will is a good part of the conversation with maneuvering. All right, Josh, you're up.
Hello, I'm Josh Sweeney. I am here in Boise, Idaho, and I started skiing, Nordic skiing in 2020, I think. Yeah, 2020. And I am a LW12.
And a little background, since I feel like it's so relevant for you, Josh, of
Oh,
prior
yeah,
sport.
right. And I played sled hockey before getting into Nordic skiing. Um, I would say maneuvering is similar. Definitely the action of skiing and the action of playing sled hockey are very similar in the muscles that you use. And so that transition was good, but there was some hiccups that I had to learn along the way.
Yay. So, and you're here to share those with us. Thank you. Working smarter, not harder. It's always the goal. I'm not saying I get it done every day, but that's the goal. Thank you both. Okay, so a little bit of a hit as to why maneuvering, why sit ski maneuvering with this is the first session like this. It is fairly unique to cross country skiing, and it is one of the hardest things to master. I think it does become so individualized. And as I say with all coaching, like my job as a coach and any other coach, our job is to help you learn to find what's right for you, whether that's the amount of training, the volume, the intensity, or the different techniques, and to provide you with different ideas and input and feedback so you can learn what's best. So the more we can share, the better we all collectively are. So I'm really excited to have everybody on this call for that reason. And also would like to kind of highlight that, and I think Aaron and Josh it'll be very apparent when they start actually helping out here, and I'll stop talking, that we're still learning in this realm. There's so much to learn as far as the best positioning, the best line, the different tactics, and there's so many different unique aspects of it that there isn't a one size fits all answer most of the time. And so I think as we discuss different ideas and look at things, it's always important to keep that in mind and to not be afraid to jump on to share your own unique ideas and what you see, because that's how we, again, collectively become better at all of this. So cool. All right, lots of talking. How about we start with a video? This is where I got nervous. I had so many practice rounds with my sharing on my screen. So I picked out one video that is a little bit, it goes back a few years. And so this is a downhill video of different levels. So all of the 5 different classes within sit skiing is, I think most of our crew on here is somewhat familiar with our 5 different classes of sit skiers. I think instead of talking through all of it, I am going to, I'm just gonna share my screen here. Can you guys see that? All right. Here's our basic classification. key. So these are our 5 different classes within sit skiing. We could talk about this all day. That's not as exciting as actually watching. So I'm going to push play here. We're going to just watch. Aaron and Josh, if you guys want to chime in and talk through, just even point out different things that you see, we can replay. You guys are in charge for directing me with this video. Everybody else, if you have thoughts, ideas, questions, we want those to be a part of this conversation. So please just raise your hand on the screen if you can, and I will bring you into the conversation. All right, I'm going to stop talking. We're going to hope this works pretty well. It's going. All right. This is in Vuokatti, Finland, a few years back. So just what are you looking at? What are you seeing besides it being dark? Again,
So I just watched this a second ago, and I will say one of the things I noticed with everybody that everybody is doing the exact same on this corner is they're using their poles to continue to guide them in the direction that they want to go. The outside one being the most active. If you watch that, like even him right there, he's constantly picking on the outside because he's already expecting to be pushed to the outside. So he wants to keep that inside turn. But they're all doing it. And then as you look at the varying classification levels, you'll see that, 12s will get up on edge a little more. 10s will end up doing more of the picking with their poles and maybe even dragging on that inside pole. But that is one thing that they are all doing.
Yeah, when I was looking at this video, it's obviously kind of hard with the light to see some of the technical features of the terrain, but to me, it's clear that it's a downhill going into a corner, and then it looks like it might be like a slight uphill or turn into a flat as you come out of the corner. Based on what I can see, it looks like it might be, and tell me if I'm wrong, but it looks like it might be a little bit slanted in on the inside of the corner. Or maybe that's,
I think
go
you're
ahead.
spot on, Aaron. But can you describe a little bit more what you mean with that? But I think
Yeah,
you're
so when I'm looking at a corner, obviously I'm looking at like the entrance to the corner. Is it flat? Is it slanted toward the corner? Is it slanted away from the corner? As you look at the corner itself, what does the snow look like? Is it flat? Is it slanted in? Is it slanted out? And then again in the exit of the corner, like what does the trail actually do? And that can really help you it helps me pick a line on how I want to approach it. So basically for this one, it looks like it's pretty flat coming into the corner. And then at least on the inside, it looks like it's slanted a little bit into the corner, which can help you make the turn without as much maneuvering. Like I think about the 12s that I see on more difficult terrain, and they're usually up on that one ski more aggressively than these are. And this could be just because it's some skiers I'm not used to seeing, and the skiers I'm used to seeing are newer, and so it's kind of hard to gauge. The other thing that I noticed about the terrain specifically, since I'm kind of focusing on that, is how throughout the video you can see that it gets piled up. There's like a ridge that happens. Like you can see kind of Oksana just skied into it a little bit right there, and it throws you around. So that's definitely something else to watch for when you're sort of reading the trail as you're looking at a corner and how to attack it.
Yeah, I think that snow is also soft. I mean, kind of like what you're saying, like it's getting pushed up. Like it's definitely softer snow, and that's why a lot of them are using their poles more than just like if it was harder snow or even icy, you might see them doing a lot more leaning over and kind of riding that outside edge of their outside edge of their inside ski, whatever. And whereas I think because it's softer snow, they're having to sort of wait and hope that it doesn't catch and throw them over. So they're leaning over a little bit, but really kind of relying on their poles more than anything else.
I think the other thing that I've noticed is that, and this is in my experience, is that with more core function, I think it seems like the higher levels have ability to like double pull more aggressively around a corner. And for my level, like if you watch Yorobi here, he's a 10. He definitely drags his inside pull and really just focuses on that outside pull to do the maneuvering. And then as he comes out of the corner, he starts to double pull, which is a great way when you don't have as much core function to like get the bulk of the maneuvering done and then start to pick up speed with both pulls as you exit the corner.
Yeah, the one person on this corner that really shows that they're 12 more than anyone else is Andy Soul. He's probably coming up here in the next couple ones because he's leaning so far over and basically touching the snow. And the other thing he's doing is he's leaning forward and inside instead of back and inside. So that will help to kind of keep you in the direction you want to go.
If you guys had this course and we're going to race on it in the next couple days, what might be your approach to training the day before, the morning of, on a corner like this?
I would. Is that for anybody?
I'm going to throw that first to Josh and Aaron, and then I'd love to hear from others too.
Josh, you want to go first or maybe I'll go first? Is that okay?
Go ahead.
All right. So for me, I think building confidence coming into a downhill corner is really important for me and the type of athlete I am. So I would definitely start with this. Maybe lower down coming into the corner at a little bit slower speed and then gradually practicing it so I can build more speed and then eventually come into it either at my goal would be to come into it as at a coast like that, or even have a couple double pulls as I'm approaching the turn, to get as much speed out of that downhill as I can, depending on how well how well I'm able to maneuver around the corner. The other things I would be thinking about, is there a track here that I would want to take? Clearly there's not one here, so I wouldn't be planning on that. I would think about the amount of speed I have coming into the corner when I initiate the turn, when I start pulling. And for me, that's definitely leaning to the side and then doing that strong outside double pull and actually making like significant contact with each pull stroke. It's almost like a rudder, like you're steering your ski, like those strong pull strokes. And then so when I initiate the turn and how soon can I start double pulling after I've made the bulk of the turn? Those are kind of the things that I would think about approaching this corner.
Yeah, and for me personally, I would first go as fast as I would in a race and pick the line that I automatically just go to and see what happens. And then from there, I would decide how to adjust that line. So, assuming we're doing laps on the course or we're able to sit there and do the turn and then come back and do the turn again, I'd first just send it, see what happened, and then look at it again as I came in for the second round. Like, do I need to start further left so that I can kind of take a more gradual corner, or do I just stay inside because it's banked, like Aaron was talking about, and just hope that I can keep pulling around and let it carry me through? And then I would just remind myself with that soft snow to like lean over and get over as far as I could, like Aaron said, because on that softer stuff, like you do not want to catch your outside ski because you'll just fall. And the goal here is to be as smooth as possible.
I love that. You both mentioned kind of leaning into the corner, correct? Now with different classes, can and we'll switch to a different video in just a second, but I do want to hit this. I'm curious from each of you, and maybe Erin, you start again, of what are you feeling? What are you thinking about with that lean? What part are you, where are you looking? What do you have like a proprioception of any certain part of your body that you're thinking about? Or how does that work for you? And then Josh, you to follow.
Usually if it is a slightly banked turn, I would want to lean inside and forward. And the way that my setup is, that can help to carry me around the corner. I also think being forward with my body helps me to be ready to start double pulling sooner, so I can sort of attack out of the corner as well. When I'm back, maneuvering can be helpful leaning back, but that's the one thing that with my core, I have a harder time getting forward to start pulling again when I lean back. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's really cool to hear. Josh, what about you?
Yeah, so same thing. Being a 12, I don't have to worry so much about having the function to be able to do it. My issue is almost having too much. So I can, if I do something too erratic, it can put me in a weird position. I mean, it's almost similar to what Oksana does earlier on in this corner. Like she comes in and she starts to, I don't know, she starts to come in, yeah, and she starts to like do too much, whereas everybody else is coming in really smooth. Like she start already thinking like about the turn, and I think it kicks her skis out funny because she's already thinking about turning, and then she has to fix it, and then realizes like, oh, okay, I should be turning down here. Like it's fine. So, but I will say like when you're leaning, I think of it as like leaning back, and it takes the weight off the front so that you can maneuver the front of your skis in the direction you want to go. And then once you get around that corner and you're feeling good, then you lean forward. And this is as I'm leaned over to the side, right? I lean back to get that turn where I want it, almost picturing putting my weight into the back, like rear inside of the turn. And then as soon as I get it to like where I'm like, all right, cool, I need to go straight, then I just lean forward, and it sets those front of those skis into the snow and kind of like locks you in the path you want to go. Biggest thing you have to be careful with when you're doing that is just that you put too much weight forward, and then the back will start to slide out. So it's all about just finding your position through the turn. And obviously this depends on snow as well. If it's thicker snow or softer snow, like you can lean forward, you almost need to lean forward more because the back's not going to come flying out on you. But if you're on something icy and you're back, and then you're like, all right, cool, I'm going to lock this in, and you lean forward, you know, that the back of your skis could start to slide on you, which never feels good. But definitely getting over, that was the biggest issue I had. And one of the reasons I constantly fell and got hurt when I first started was that in hockey, you want to keep your weight, like basically you want to be sitting straight up, and you just want to maneuver your hips, and you don't want to lean over too far because then you're stretching yourself out and you'll get hit and you'll fall or whatever. Whereas in skiing, it's the opposite. If you stay planted like in the middle and you try to do everything in this little box that's just above your frame, you will catch your outside edges nonstop falling. So you really want to lean out, and almost lean out to the point where you're like, oh my gosh, am I going to like fall over? Because if you don't, you will catch that outside edge and you will fall over.
Do you mean lean in to the inside of the turn?
Or yeah, like leaning to the inside of the turn. Yes. I guess when I say out, I mean like out into space.
Okay.
Into the abyss.
Can I say one more thing about
Please.
leading and position? I, as a 10, like I could not maneuver until I had a sit ski that really fit my body well. And so I think like if you're having an athlete who is really struggling, like I couldn't even like really windshield wiper very well. I remember that was very difficult for me initially. And it really what it was all about is like I think once I got a a sit ski that fit me really well, and I could translate it would translate my upper body movement to my bucket better, then I had, that was a great like foundational piece of maneuvering that really helped me to sort of build from there. So
Yeah, I will echo that. Being locked into your frame or your bucket that you're in, like that makes a huge difference. Because I was in an open bucket before and felt like I was swimming in it and was having a heck of a time. And then transferred into a more custom bucket where I'm like literally vacuumed into that thing. And now I can maneuver way better. So if you're having issues maneuvering, or if someone you know is having issues maneuvering, like just check and see how sloppy of a fit it is and try to make it tighter.
Aaron, quick question. When you're coming into a turn, do you initiate with your pulling more aggressive on the outside first, or when do you unweight the back by going forward in the turn? Is that middle turn that you're going to lean forward more to kick out? Do you think about that at all?
I don't really know. I gotta be honest.
Yeah, I know it's a
think-
natural process.
I think it's more like I'm more like kind of because to be honest, I don't have a lot of options to move my body a ton in the middle of a turn because I'm managing like momentum and pulling, and I don't have a lot of control over my core to like move forward or back or whatever. So, but I do think usually like kind of depending on the turn, I can be like kind of like neutral and start the turn and then lean forward. But I don't know that I necessarily lean forward right away when I start the turn, but I
No,
could
yeah,
be
no, I see you more upright working the pole.
yeah, with the using the pole.
Is
Mhm.
your go-to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I lean forward.
And if I can add there, a piece of advice that Aaron Pike gave me when I was first starting, it was that use your, like, don't ever try to just shimmy your hips or do anything through a turn or whatever without consistently trying to pull with your poles through what you're doing. Like, you always want to have as much contact with your poles as much as possible so that you're continually pulling through. It's just like driving a car, right? Like, you don't slam on the brakes as soon as you start to make a turn. Like, you want to continually pull through that turn so that you can come out the other side in the direction you want to go. So polling is definitely always something you want to keep doing.
I completely. Oh, sorry, Pete. You want to go ask?
Well, I just want to clarify. So you're almost saying you need forward propulsion to make your steering inputs work. You need to be driving forward for the steering inputs to have effect, possibly.
And usually, like, speed, I find, as much as it's scary, and depending on how new you are at skiing, like, it can be pretty scary. But I found that speed can help you because it doesn't feel, it's not so hard to do what you're trying to do if you can carry enough speed. And I don't know how to explain that in a physics way. I just know that's how it feels.
I think that one of the least intuitive things that I've learned with maneuvering is that a good, like, solid forward pole plant can get you out of a lot of sketchy situations. Like when things start to feel hairy, you really want to like freeze up and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't feel like I'm in control. And the best way to get back into control is to put some pole plants in forward. I also think that one of the tendencies that I have when I'm around 12s is to try to do like big maneuvers and big pole strokes. But really, for me, the more often I can get like small frequent points of contact throughout a maneuver, the better it goes. The better it goes for me, and I think that and especially because I have so much more like points of support for my trunk with my poles.
I just started playing something in the background just so because we're gonna watch it a couple times. But I love all these points. Hannah, you had a question regarding previewing the course. It is fairly typical in Paranordic events that the day before, a couple days before, even the morning of, that you can preview the course. It's not always the morning of you can, but our coaches will always go out and preview to let you know if there are any changes with grooming and things like that. But yes, we do generally preview the course. This clip here that's in slow-mo right now is from Soldier Hollow last year, and I apologize, I only have Dan, Josh, and Aaron Pike skiing this corner. This is our slow-mo. But Aaron, I know you skied this, and I'm guessing you have some memories on skiing this. This is a long, sweeping corner. Back in the day when we had tons of snow last winter. I was very much in the deep over here. And you got a fair amount of speed. And there were a lot of different approaches to this. And I think these 3 clips are kind of fun to watch. But then, Aaron, I'm curious to hear more of your memories and take on this. Before I jump into that, I'm going to play this again. I'm going to pause it. Loving what you just said, Aaron, regarding hairy situations. Can you describe what a hairy situation might be for you when you're thinking of those things, of polling?
Yeah, usually a hairy situation is when I start to skid and I'm in a spot where I could catch my outside edge.
Like a
Um,
corner,
yeah, on a corner,
downhill.
on a downhill. Yeah, yeah. So anytime I'm in a position where I'm going fast and I'm like already a little like heightened, and then I'm more, my skis start to skid, and which is obviously a really helpful tool to have, but sometimes it can, if you're not ready for it or if you're not controlling it, it can you can fall, and so usually that's what I mean by that, and so just making sure to keep in contact with the snow with your poles can help a lot.
Love it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Go ahead.
dragging your pole like you're about to see Dan do here is kind of like the other option, at least that I feel. If you can't pole plant because you're going too fast or whatever, dragging whichever pole makes you feel better. Usually it's the inside one to just at least get some sort of contact or some sort of feedback, or to just kind of feel like you're slowing yourself in the way you want to go, can kind of do the same thing.
Yeah, and I pretty much always drag my inside pole on turns. It helps me, if it helps me balance. It helps me kind of get like a point of reference to where my body is in space, and kind of helps me feel more secure going around a corner.
I think this video doesn't do this corner and downhill justice. It's a fairly big hill. Where I was standing again, I think multiple people were coming at the same time for later on. That's why I didn't get video, because I was too nervous to have video out at the same time.
I
But
think you were also ready to play catch.
yes, thankfully I only had to do it once, and there was like 8 feet of snow. So someone just kind of went in and like sunk. Everybody was fine. But okay, Josh, there you are, slow-mo. Talk us through what you're thinking of going around this thing.
Yeah. So with this turn, it's scary. And especially if you're coming flying in race speed, because it's pretty sharp right here, and then it slowly kind of opens up. But if you don't hit it, if you don't make that turn, it kind of sets you up to go too wide to the outside, and it's hard to, and it's not, I mean, it's kind of banked, but I don't know. Basically, as I'm
Basically
going
run
through
into me.
yeah, as I'm going through it, like what I'm thinking is leaning over and on kind of near the back, I guess, of my position to get my skis, that inside edge, outside edge of my inside ski, basically the furthest left ski, whatever part, scraping along the snow to keep me kind of going in the direction I want to go. And then as I'm coming around, like, so that's to get the turn done right here. Like I'm getting the turn done. I have my hand out. I kind of was leaning lower just in case, I needed to almost punch the snow to keep myself up because I really wanted to cut. And then as I'm coming through, I'm starting to like, I think it's like a little bit more, I'm starting to realize like, all right, cool. I'm going to come out of this. I sit up and I immediately get ready to start pulling again. And then Aaron, I mean, he just looks beautiful. He's just cruising.
I'll take this quick moment to say that the first video that we looked at, that was from quite a few years ago. I'd love to show it to Oksana now because I think she would critique herself quite harshly. She used to jump a lot. She would ski that differently now, which is just goes to show just practice, man. Goes a long ways.
And this is a corner that if the snow is, if it's harder, like you want speed. You don't want to come into this corner slow because you'll
Why?
essentially like fall over. Like it's a weird, like you don't have enough speed to carry you through to keep you turning in the direction you want to go. So you'll end up either going straight or just falling over.
I could talk about it too.
Yeah.
If you're ready.
Yeah, I
Okay.
want for sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't
So
have video, but
this is a corner that I tried a few different lines on, and this is one of those corners that I feel like is actually beneficial for a 10 to take a wider line on. I tried to cut across and get that inside corner, like the most of the guys in this video are doing, like kind of starting where Dan is and then cutting toward that inside,
in here.
cutting toward those inside V boards to make it like a straight line. But really there was enough hill there and I couldn't get up on edge that I caught my downhill edge and took a like a rolling fall. It was not like a little fall, it was a big fall. So I didn't do that again because I was like, I don't think that's going to work for me. So basically, I ended up starting, from what I remember, I ended up starting at the outside and basically trying to follow around the outside, just because the more gradual maneuvering is easier for me. The making more like sharp or tight corners is really difficult when you don't get up on one ski. So from what, and Beth Ann, you watched me do this, but from what I recall, I tried to take an outside line and really I had to pull as hard as I could to stay on the trail. It was a fight, like just right till the edge of the trail. And then I got past it and it was one of those ones where I like almost went off the trail every time, but didn't. And sometimes that's just how it goes.
Yeah, I do remember that. I remember discussing the different lines and for the higher injuries or those that were newer and are not getting up on an edge, that outside just carving a wider angle was definitely the way to go. And I don't want to workshop this one too long, but I do want to ask of like that from you both of if you were skiing something like this and you're trying different lines, like what are you looking at? Because I know this was a unique hill in that we talk so much about how a corner a terrain is graded and if it's off camber on the inside, right? So you can bank it. This is actually, from what I remember, it wasn't banked really at all towards that end. It kind of flattened out, which would then kick you out. So things you're thinking about when you're watching other people, what are some things that you're thinking about or watching? If you're watching Dan do this, what takeaways would you have? Josh, if you're following Dan and you just saw him do that.
I usually like to follow Dan, but I like following Aaron more. Because Aaron,
we'll go back to that later.
Right. Well, because Aaron, I mean, if you watch the way that he did it, like he's just so smooth. And I think in racing, you want to make the least amount of adjustments necessary when you're going through a turn. Like you just want to cruise through that turn. And Aaron does such a good job of just finding that line that he can almost sit in the same spot. Like if you watch him, his body position doesn't change very much throughout that entire turn. He's just kind of gets into that way that he's sitting and he just cruises around. And so that's kind of where I'll watch them and see, like, all right, which way is Aaron going? Which way is Dan going? You know, Dan's a little more aggressive of a skier. He's at a much higher angle than Aaron. And so but like, I kind of look at their lines as they're skiing. And on that, I would say, okay, you know, if I followed them each once, I would say, well, Dan seemed to have to do a decent amount of maneuvering through the turn, whereas Aaron looks smooth. So I probably try to take Aaron's line.
I like the video on this too for the amount of lean that you can do, because I think that demonstrates it really well. Aaron, how about you? If you're following someone, whoever, you could say if it was another 10 or if it was a 12, what are you looking at? What takeaways do you get from that those observations?
Usually I mean, obviously I watch their line and I see how it impacts. I pay attention to how much speed they're carrying into the turn. You know, for a 10, sometimes checking speed is the right decision, and sometimes it's not. So I would watch as they're coming into this. Are they pulling into it? Are they like doing a couple taps to check speed? And then I watch as they're coming out of it, like how does their line set them up? So like, you know, Pike's line is great and it doesn't swing him too far wide. Like you would definitely want to pick a line that you don't have to take a ton of time to recover from, if possible.
Yes.
That
One
answer your
last question on this one.
Yes.
Where are you guys looking? It's hard to see with this video. It's not the greatest quality. Where are you guys looking while you're going around that corner?
Straight down. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm looking where I'm coming out of the turn. You know, I'm trying to see as I'm dropping down into it. I might take a quick glance at like, all right, snow look all right. It's not all built up somewhere. I'm not about to hit something cool. And then I'm looking at where I'm going. And then you'll see, like, as soon as I pick my head, like I'm already looking. And then as soon as I realize I can start going straight, like I immediately go into pulling.
Look where I want to go.
Cool. All right.
And I feel like the harder the turn is, the more intensely I have to look at where I want to go.
The intense stare down. All right. Anyone have questions on that one?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Looking at the three of them doing that, it seemed like a few were leaning forward more or like just straight side and some were back. Is that a core thing or is that a leg mass and sit ski position thing? Every time I watch that corner, I never know which it is. Because it seems like Josh and Dan like lean side and forward, whereas like especially at the end of the turn, I don't know if it's because of the line that Pike took, like he seems to be like leaning like diagonal back corner almost, like through that turn, but it also could just be the line that he took.
Nope. All right, you guys.
I think he is definitely leaning a little more back. He also has a lot more weight on like the front of his, like, because we don't have legs, right? So like in the front of his frame or his frame, I guess. Like he's got that weight over, whereas we don't. So that's probably why we're sort of more forward than he is, whereas he's trying to unweight that front of his skis, and whereas we're like more already don't have a ton of weight on the front. So now as we're coming out of it, we're trying to get weight on the front.
Guys,
Does that
other
sound
thoughts?
like?
Sorry, I'm prepping the next video.
I would say this also depends on like where your skis are located under you and how you feel on the sets of skis that you have. And, you know, I think that body position and like leaning back will definitely unweight the front. Leaning forward unweights the back. So like that's automatically going to happen. But based on where you have the skis on the rails underneath you, You know, like I've had some skis on where if I lean back at all, like I start getting squiggly and I'm like, oh, you know, like, so I can't even lean back because then I start to feel like I'm going to go flying off. So it just also depends on what you're skiing on.
Let's come back to that in just a little bit. I do want to do, Josh and Aaron, unless you guys have another video specific, I'm picking that 180 corner from Nationals. There's the video you sent, Aaron, and there's also another collection of videos that I have. And did I lose my screen share here, guys? Can you guys still see this? Nope. Okay, thank you for me and my slowness. All right, how's that? This one, we've got two different videos. Maybe we'll start with, this is a shorter one. This is a 180-degree turn coming in from a flat gradual down, but you could get quite a bit of speed, and then a sharp 180 to the left, which you will see. And this is one short 16-second video, and there is another one that's 2 minutes of a bunch of different people from the other side. And I want to play this one a couple times because I think we've got Dan and then we've got Aaron. Yay. Oh,
Aaron made that look easy. That's not that easy.
all right. Well, that's the problem with all of this with you guys. That's a little difficulty. How do we make it look real? But we're gonna work with it. And Aaron, do you want to talk through some of your approaches to this?
Yeah. So I think I took it a little bit wider than Dan. It was nice because it was banked a little bit, so I felt like I could kind of ride it out a little bit around the corner. I did at that point where Dan turns there, I did scrub a little speed and sort of came out just a little bit as I came into the corner because again, I just don't have the ability to turn quite as sharply. And then this is a great example of like being forward and being able to double pull, get into the double pull quickly. For the longest time when I would come into 180s, I would lean back and pull, which is good for off-weighting my tips and getting my tips around. But then I was like kind of stuck back and it was hard for me to get forward to start attacking again. And so being able to stay in a more, I am leaning back a little bit there, but being in a more neutral position and then being able to get forward as quickly as I can to start double pulling, I think made it, that particular part of the turn, 180 is always the hardest for me. And I think being able to kind of figure that out has made a big difference in time for me.
This is a cool video to capture that too. You can almost see that moment where you're back and then you make that adjustment.
Yeah.
We'll do this one more time and then I'll play the next one, which is a collection of more athletes. Some of you will be on it too.
And
I mean, Dan has to do this. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, and Dan's doing the same thing. Like if you watch Dan, the same thing that Aaron's doing as he's coming around this corner, he's on edge. And then as soon as he realizes he needs to start going up, he sacrifices being on edge and he lets the tail of his, like the back of his skis essentially just drift as he's pulling up the hill. Cause if you don't, like you can't be turning and pulling at the same time without being on edge and falling over. So you do in some situations, and thankfully the snow here is not super thick or really soft, where you do have to kind of let the back of your skis just drift as you're skiing. And at first it feels really weird and it doesn't really feel like something that should be happening. But as long as you're continuing to pull in the direction that you want to go, it's not that big of a deal.
Aaron, did you have something else too, or did I lose track of that?
I forgot. I'll remember it in a minute.
This is a little fuzzy for the first part, but then it gets better. I still think it's worth watching. And some of you guys are here. Right,
Oh,
so-
I remember what I was going to say. The other thing that I think is really helpful is to pull. When I pulled, I actually pulled like ahead of me and kind of pulled around, which I think helped the maneuvering is like actually planning the pull ahead to kind of steer the skis that way. Which I think, yeah, that was the only other thing I was going to point out.
Okay. Here's you, Josh, from this angle.
Yeah, that's another reason to keep your eyes up, because like I had to see that whoever was in front of me was starting to slow down, and I had to cut to the inside on that turn. On top of turning.
I like that. I'm gonna replay that last two because you and Kendall, if you watch where they come out of their turn. Right, Kendall's out there. And oh, I kind of cut you off. Sorry, Josh. You're on the inside. I think that's a kind of a cool observation.
And I
Yeah,
think
I like to take those tight. Sorry, Aaron.
Yeah, for me, I feel like I would rather scrub speed and not get not get shot out into the turn, but be able to carry it tight around the corner because for me, I believe that really saves time than it would be to come into that super hot and get kind of pulled wide like Kendall did.
Yeah,
Because
and
I
then
just
Yeah,
don't have the power to like pick up my speed as quickly. So it feels more efficient to me to be a little bit more slow and then into the corner.
there's
yeah, and then as I'm approaching it, if there's nobody else in the corner, I like this. I mean, I kind of just took it wherever it did. I didn't try to stay too far inside, because then if you're trying to keep it too tight, there's more of a chance of being too aggressive and then falling over. So I would just stay near the middle. But like with Kendall and the turn before that one, I knew Kendall was in front of me, and I knew that whoever was in front of me in that other one, um, I wasn't sure where they were going to go. And I mean, more likely than not, sit skiers are going to go wide. Like they're just going to get thrown wide, then they are going to get tight. And so that's where I will anticipate them getting thrown wide or taking the turn wide. And I will just already in my head know if they're up there that I'm going to try to cut to the inside, because it's much easier or it's much more likely that they won't be there than if I try to go outside. Not only am I adding more time to my turn, but more than likely they're going to end up cutting me off and hitting me. And that's that you kind of hit a point like as you're coming around the turn where you'll start, especially on an aggressive 180 like this, where you'll feel like, all right, I'm turning, this is great, and all of a sudden I'm basically stopping. And that's about the point where you have to start pulling and letting your skis start to just kind of drift around that corner and just sacrifice maneuverability for the power of getting in the direction you want to go.
all right, everybody else, what else are there thoughts on what you're seeing with this 180? Different approaches, things that pop out, surprising, not surprising? Are there any points of like, how are they doing that? Besides
One thing I noticed was how far Dan's arms are out when he skis. I guess I've always noticed that, but I never really thought about it. Like he has his arms way out there, and I'll use them sometimes too, because it's almost like a pendulum where you can use your arm to like kind of get you to help you go in the direction you want to go. It's like, if anything, if you're going forward, you put your arm behind you, more than likely you're going to twist that way. So that's something, if somebody's having trouble leaning or they look tight with their poles, they're staying kind of in this bubble, just have them start sticking their arms out, and they'll automatically kind of, I think, start to feel that.
I have a question. It seemed like I think it's like the third one that I think it's Dan that comes through. It almost looks like he's on one ski and pulling with the outside pull, but it's hard to see because resolution. Is that correct that he is on his inside ski but pulling with the outside? I think it's coming up soon.
It could be. If he's, I mean, he again has that so much of a reach. I'm sorry, I'm chiming in. Let you guys talk.
He probably is. It's Dan.
Again, he's up higher and has a very big reach. With that is, where is he? Oh yeah, he's coming up here.
Man, looking good, Ty.
Yeah. He's on, not so much. I don't know if it was that one.
I thought it was the next one where Aaron wasn't right behind him.
Okay, is that further down or is that
Or
the?
maybe it's not Dan. I don't know. It's whoever comes up
Oh,
next.
it's
I
this
think.
one. It's coming up.
I thought it was Dan.
This is Dan. Yeah. Let me do that one again. Here, let's pause. Yeah, the resolution isn't great. What do you guys think?
I think he at least gets both his skis down. He might pop up a little bit as he's pulling to the inside. He might, sometimes you have to just like, as you're pulling, maybe lean over. But I think for the most part, he gets them down before he starts pulling. It's pretty hard going through a turn on edge to continue or to be on edge and put your arms forward and try to pull while on edge.
Yeah, I see kind of some tapping with the outside, maybe some dragging, but not actual pulling motion till there. It's like as you're flattening out and then pulling. That was, but that's one perspective. Okay, I'm gonna pull up a new one here, unless our oops. Aaron and Josh, do you have other thoughts or approaches, or how did you guys feel on this one? This wasn't that long ago.
I felt pretty good on it, but my maneuvering is like, I don't know. I felt all right on it.
Do you guys remember any specifics on the type of ski you were on, classic versus skate, on this day?
I was on skate.
I feel like I'm always on classic for whatever reason. And I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I just feel like I'm always on classics. Usually, and they're usually softer. Yeah.
Yeah. Aaron, were you happy you were on skate versus classic? Yeah, thoughts on that? Or maybe it didn't matter?
Skate is definitely my comfort zone. I think the main reason why I prefer skate is because classic gets kicked out of the tracks so a little easier. And okay, sorry, I said that classic gets kicked out of the tracks easier, right? Yeah, and so I prefer skate because I tend to do if there is a downhill corner or I just tend to spend more time in the tracks. And so I like to have a ski that I feel more confident that I can maneuver and stay in the track for. So
It's funny you say that because like I think that's the reason I'm on classics now more than skate is because I like the predictability of the classics essentially throwing me out of the tracks because when I would use skate when I first started skiing, I felt like I would be in all of a sudden like I just like I would start to get out but it was like fighting it and I didn't know so I would like fall so then I started using classics because as soon as it would start to get weird it would just pull me out and I think that's why I'm on them now.
interesting. Yeah, it is harder to tell. There's like weird stuff that happens. I feel like with skate skis that like for me, I noticed that when they start to like kind of chatter, then they're like high risk to come out. So, but and then also just like noticing along the trail where other people have gone out of the tracks, and like really intentionally doing pole plants in those spots to stay in the tracks. But yeah, they are kind of unpredictable. I'll give you that for sure.
Our hour is going quickly here. I'm just gonna have this playing. This is from a couple years ago in Bozeman, actually, in some soft conditions again, and just another awkward 180, which maybe comes with more weight coming from Josh and Aaron, but I feel fairly confident in that most at ski courses end up with some sort of awkward 180-degree turn. So they're good to practice, right? And you guys feel free to chime in, but one quick question specific to Josh for the general group of, if you were to give someone advice on practicing getting up on one ski while cornering, is there any couple bits of advice that you would recommend in that process? Leave it there, and then I'll come back to another one.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that, like, speed is your friend when it comes to getting up on edge. If you're, and I like, it's scary and it is what it is. But if you try going slow and getting on edge, it just doesn't work. Or you end up it feels weird because you don't have the momentum to carry you, or you don't have the momentum to cut through the snow like you want to. Instead, what ends up happening is you're just going slow and you like try to get on edge and you fall over. So I would say, if you can, like, find a turn you're comfortable with and start taking it maybe a little quicker and get on edge, and really let that edge of that ski start to like cut through the snow. But then also
inside edge, correct?
Inside edge, yeah, cutting through as you're turning. And then also it's like just playing with your position. So when you're leaning outside of your normal sitting straight up box, it's playing with, am I forward, am I back, and what is that doing? And like, if I lean back a little more, does that help me? Or if or does it make it so squirrely I don't know what I'm doing? Do I just need to lean straight over? Also, I would say that your position of your skis underneath you, if you move forward a little bit, it can help to unweight the front of your skis so that you can get on edge a little easier. You just have to be careful, because if it's too easy, then you get on edge, and then you can't get the tips to go back down and point you in the direction you want to go. And then the other thing with getting on edge, I feel, and this is something Aaron told me when I first started skiing pike, was like, pick a ski, don't sit flat. Right. I mean, no matter what, like he was basically like, don't sit flat, and continue, and make sure you're continuing to pull, because if you sit flat on both skis, like, you're kind of stuck in this weird, they're both going forward and doing what they're doing. But if it's really tough terrain, they're almost fighting against each other with where your position is. And then if you're not leaning, it makes it worse. So almost like what I do when I'm skiing is I pick a ski. And if it's a little slope to the right, I'll stay on the left side. If it's a little to the left, I'll stay on the right side. Somewhere in the middle, I'll just kind of pick one. I'll put a little more weight on that ski than I have. Essentially, one of my skis always has more weight than the other one, and it just depends on what direction I'm trying to go. And it just allows you to not get into situations where you'll start to slide or get sketchy.
Like it.
Can I ask a quick question? You said put weight on the front of the skis. I'm sorry. You said lean forward to unweight the front of the skis. Did you mean lean forward because you want weight on the front of the skis in the turn?
Did I say lean forward or move the skis forward? What did I say? What was I saying?
You said lean
guess
forward to unweight the front of the skis.
Oh, well, I didn't mean that. That doesn't make any sense.
But if you, I I think you did say move the bind. So when you say move forward, many of our skis now you can move the binding a click or two forward or back. Is that what you were?
Yeah. So I guess in my mind, what I was thinking was if you're moving the skis forward, like you're putting your body, all your weight further back on the skis. So then there's less weight on the front of the skis, which for me, it helps me to kind of swivel the front or almost windshield wiper, like Aaron said earlier, which will help to initiate the turn getting on edge.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is from Soldier Hollow last year at the World Cup, and just another awkward 180 degree. It's kind of at the top of a hill into a gradual down. Of course it was snowy because that was our year last year. We're kind of running out of our hour here. I have one more question for both Aaron and Josh. I'm going to just keep playing this one right now for the time being, and we're going to slow it down. When you guys think about how learning like this skill development in your process, and we never stop learning, right? But as you're working on maneuvering specifically, can you either of you pick out one or two things that you found to be the most helpful, whether it's skiing with people, workshopping a corner over and over, watching video? I mean, it could be a combination of things, but anything like really stick out in your brain of like, this is where I remember having some aha moments, kind of thing. Josh, you look like you're ready.
I am. I'm always ready. I was definitely remembering the time when Aaron and I went up to Canmore and worked with Nick. And basically, we just had this section of turns. And I mean, I don't know how many times we did them. And we tried all kinds of different, like 90s, 180s, different approaches, different lines. And then Nick recorded them. And we were able to watch that and like see what we were doing. We also worked on kind of pole stroking, like short, don't reach too far forward because you're exerting too much energy. Kind of keep it short and tight. At least that was for me. Don't stick your arms out too far. And like that was all stuff that I had heard and I knew or whatever. But once you see it, then it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm reaching way too far out. And so I would say definitely like picking a spot, having cones, just tossing cones out. It doesn't even really matter. And learning how to maneuver through your little world you've created and figure out what's helping you do what you're trying to do and where your body is when you're doing that, and then having it recorded so you can actually watch it. So you don't just have someone saying, well, this is what you did, like, so you can actually see it.
I think for me, learning to read terrain, and understanding how it influences the way I move on my ski was probably one of the most important things to learn. I mean, and one of the ways that you do that I did that was putting like Josh said, skiing cones and having cones in awkward places and with weird side hill. And it's really easy to say like, well, wait a minute, why all of a sudden did I get pulled, way out to there? And then being able to recognize, okay, that's because there's a side hill here, and how do I, you know, thinking about ways that I can anticipate the terrain so that I can minimize the impact on where I'm skiing. So reading terrain, I think, is probably learning how to read it and how it impacts my ski is a number one. And number two is getting really comfortable and this is a 10, I think a 10, more of a 10 perspective, but like getting really comfortable using lots of small pole strokes to steer, getting comfortable, yeah, just kind of being like constantly active with your poles, especially with maneuvering and learning how, just kind of playing around with that to see how it can help you negotiate corners better. I also think skiing, watching people who are better than you helps a lot too.
Yeah, if you can have fun and turn it into games and ski with your friends or ski with other people, even if you're just screwing around, like I think that's where you'll enjoy it the most and not just sit there and watch video.
You're muted.
There, I see everybody has to do it once in a call, right? Mute themselves and then start talking. This video is from Torsby ski tunnel from a few years back, and you can see it's kind of fun. Some more cone drills and just awkward, and there is a 180 on some of them, but lots of playing on skis. I cannot thank you guys enough, all of you, for coming, and I am recording this. I am going to share the playlist from this call, so you guys all have a quick access to these videos. And are there any other quick questions? I know we're kind of at time, but if anyone, also please feel free to follow up with questions too. I'm excited to do more of these and for us to also have more that are just full on roundtable discussions too. But Josh and Aaron, your expertise and experience and just feedback on all of this has been really, really valuable. And so thank you for taking the time to do this and sharing with everybody, because I know I learned things too.
Happy to.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. With that, I will follow up with sharing the playlist. And if any of you have other questions or yeah, thoughts, don't be a stranger. But with that, I'll say good night to all of you. Thanks.
Great. Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.